What is the dumbest way the popular kid effed up their life? They poured some chemicals on the football field to spell out our graduation year for a senior prank. It killed the grass and ruined the soil underneath. The grass and soil on a football field are specific and expensive. It cost tens of thousands of dollars to repair it on such short notice. The school wanted to be lenient. However, the insurance company required them to get the police involved to cover the claim. So, they were arrested. 4 of them were in a car. The driver was going very fast on an expressway late at night. They lost control of the vehicle and it flipped, ejecting 3 of them who weren't wearing seatbelts. The driver was rolled over by the car and killed instantly. The second person died from their injuries, and the third suffered severe brain damage and requires assistance for the rest of their life. 1 passenger was wearing a seatbelt and was left with minor injuries. Except for the trauma of watching 2 of his friends die and 1 become severely disabled. Edit. Many of you have asked where this happened. It was in upstate NY, though I don't remember the year, but it was at least 15 years ago. Given how many of you asked or shared similar stories, I think the overall theme here is wear your seatbelt every time. Took pictures of himself getting intimate with the football coach's daughter and slipped a copy under the coach's office door as revenge for some slight against him. He was one of the top football players. He was foolish enough to think the coach's daughter wouldn't reveal who was in the picture. Of course she did, and of course the coach knew, and of course he was kicked off the team. A few months of disciplinary actions followed because he spiraled, and he was sent to one of those schools for people who have difficulty functioning in normal schools. I don't know if it ruined his life, but it ruined his trajectory, and he wound up dropping out of the local community college instead of going off to Florida State like he had planned. He got his girlfriend pregnant. She dumped him and started dating his best friend. Shortly after giving birth, she got pregnant again. She dumped the best friend and went back to the popular kid. The popular kid then learned she was pregnant with the best friend's child. He got into his car, parked on the best friend's street, waited for him to show up, and shot him 3 times. The girlfriend was in the car with him and even gave him the gun. The best friend survived, and both the popular kid and the girlfriend are currently in jail. It's in Canada, by the way. He brutally attacked a disabled kid who was well loved by everyone and known for telling dad jokes. The situation escalated when the kid suffered a brain bleed and almost died, leading to the attacker being sent to prison for attempted manslaughter. What triggered this? Allegedly, the disabled kid made a harmless, flirty joke to the popular guy's sister, something along the lines of, "If you were a dessert, you'd be a cutie pie." The attacker's parents don't even visit him in prison. This kid wasn't necessarily popular, but he was on the verge. He wanted nothing more than to be on our high school's cross-country team. Despite his determination and repeated attempts, he just didn't have the chops for it. During a gym class fitness test, where we had to run laps around the school's perimeter and complete as many as possible, he saw it as his chance to prove himself. Most of us dropped out after a lap or 2 and sat on the bleachers. However, a group of cross-country kids took it as a challenge and ran lap after lap. Determined to show he deserved to be on the team, this kid hung on at the back of the pack, struggling but never giving up. As we cheered him on from the bleachers, he suddenly soiled himself. The mess was visible as it spilled from his shorts onto the pavement, and he kept running despite the situation. The gym teacher, who fancied himself a drill sergeant, flagged him down, reprimanded him, and made him clean up the mess while we all watched in discomfort. His popularity never recovered, and he never made it onto the cross-country team. If anyone wants to make a Rudy-esque film about this, let me know, and I'll fill in the details. Thought he'd be cool by chugging an entire bottle of vodka. He ended up killing himself through alcohol poisoning. Lost a testicle in a barbed wire fence mishap, and was forever known as Uniball Scott. Not sure if it messed up his life, but high school was definitely tough for him. Meth. From what I understand, she has a couple of kids with different fathers. The fathers have full custody of her kids. I see her mugshot in the local paper every once in a while because she is in and out of jail. The last I heard, she was living in a dilapidated camper in a trailer park. It's unbelievable how some people can completely ruin their lives. I had a friend who was a straight A student. Everyone loved him, and he came from a good middle-class family. His dad was a solicitor, I think. He never put a foot out of line. One day, he came in and set off half a dozen smoke bombs in math class. It turns out his dad was part of the Sealed Knot, an English Civil War reenactment society. The smoke bombs were used by his dad to simulate the smoke from cannons. He was quickly suspended and then sent to private schooling. I've never seen a turnaround as quick. Apparently, they are dangerous, and his dad had signed something to say they were in a secure location. Not something you should steal, smuggle into secondary school, and throw at the math teacher because you forgot your homework. Sitting on railings. Just don't do it. I know one girl from high school who was sitting on someone's deck railing at a party. She fell backward, broke her back, and is in a wheelchair to this day. Another kid was sitting on the railing at a SkyTrain station, Vancouver's subway that is largely on elevated track. He fell backward, a full story onto concrete, and died right in front of his girlfriend. Just 1 second chatting happily with her, the next second he's gone, and the next second he's dead. It seems like such a dumb little thing, but it's so not worth it to sit on a railing. Got into cocaine at parties and started smoking weed since he was 11. He was a 4.0 student, quarterback, and was the human embodiment of the adjective foxy. He always sold weed, and then he started snorting more coke than he made from selling weed. He began running thin and took too much when he got some again. He overdosed before his 21st birthday, not even 3 years out of high school. It was less than a year that he was on that stuff. Got drunk at a party and went after a freshman who had crashed the senior party with a broken beer bottle. He was charged as an adult with attempted manslaughter. This happened the week before his 18th birthday, and he was never seen at school again. His football scholarship to college was revoked. I only know his birthday because it's the day before mine. In elementary school, our class parties were often combined. Edit. I have no idea where he is now. I haven't spoken to anyone from my class since graduation. My mom went to school with a popular kid who was involved in a DUI accident. He crashed with another popular and generally well-liked kid. The passenger was badly hurt, while the driver only had superficial injuries. To avoid getting caught, the driver left the scene, leaving the passenger to die on the side of the road. It was later determined that the passenger would have survived if the driver had called 911. He was still alive for hours. The driver was eventually caught. I believe he's out now and still lives in the small town he grew up in. It's a no one talks about it, but everyone knows kind of situation. He has no real social life because of it. Not the dumbest by any means. Most of the popular kids I went to school with are living their best lives now. I did go to school with a popular kid in the year above me who tried to break up an argument outside of a pub. He was punched to the ground and then kicked repeatedly in the head, like a football. He never made it out of the coma. It made national headlines, especially because it involved underage drinkers and exposed a scandal involving city center pubs not checking IDs. He would pick on a kid with autism, and the school would turn a blind eye. He was on track to get a football scholarship. However, the kid's uncle was involved with a white supremacist biker gang. They showed up, broke his knee, and busted his head open with a bike chain while he was walking home with his friends. Because of the severe knee damage, he could no longer participate in the sport and lost the scholarship. The most popular guy in our small town realized he was a nobody after high school. To regain respect, he decided to make everyone fear him by brutally assaulting a mentally handicapped cart return boy at the local grocery store. He ended up going to jail for it and hopefully got his due in prison. Afterward, he started his own breast cancer awareness organization. You might think he turned his life around and wanted to help others. But no, he was just looking for an excuse to be involved with something related to breasts. During a senior football game, he was paralyzed. As for the others, their lives took a variety of paths. Some are doing very well, while others are living more average lives. One of the average popular guys drowned while trying to save someone else. Another ended up killing his family, though they weren't considered popular. The most popular ones from high school are now living more average lives. John, a flashy and good-looking kid who was quite talented at Taekwondo, kept bullying a quiet new student who had recently immigrated from Venezuela. After Andre, the immigrant student, had had enough and pushed back, John challenged him to a fight after school. The fight ended very quickly. John attempted a flashy kick, reminiscent of something you'd see in a Van Damme movie, but it missed. Andre easily dodged it, landed a right hook to John's jaw, and followed with a left roundhouse kick to his face. John was knocked out cold while still standing. It turned out that Andre's dad was a former military police officer in Venezuela and a kickboxer of some repute. He had taught Andre how to protect himself from a young age. This happened in March, and John didn't return to school until graduation in the summer. He spent the rest of the school year being homeschooled. Two groups of popular kids from my high school and a rival school ended up causing a tragedy that destroyed several lives. They had a bonfire party at a lake, and tensions flared between the schools. At some point, someone pulled out a pistol, which caused everyone to panic and rush to their vehicles. In the chaos, several people jumped into the back of a pickup truck. The driver, impaired and trying to escape, attempted to pass a car by veering into oncoming traffic. In a desperate maneuver to avoid a head-on collision, the truck flipped. The accident was catastrophic. 3 kids were killed, and 8 others were critically injured, with many left in comas. A friend who witnessed the crash described it as horrific, with body parts scattered and an overwhelming scene of chaos. The incident has become infamously known as the Lake Name Tragedy on that road. So yeah, not just one popular kid, but basically all of them from 2 schools ruined each other's lives in one terrible night. Don't drink and drive. Not my school, but someone I knew. My first career was in road construction. This was in South Texas, and the crews were mostly made up of immigrants from Mexico. I had this one white guy on my crew, a truck driver, and he had a strange story. He was a high school quarterback with a college recruit spot committed to Baylor. Popular, with wealthy parents, the whole deal. He got drunk one night and wrapped his sports car around a tree, which destroyed his leg to the extent that he had a permanent limp. The pain meds led to opiate addiction, which he balanced with meth. Dude was a mess. He had some wild stories, like essentially rustling his father's cattle to get money for drugs. He ended up marrying a counselor from rehab. I tried to keep him out of trouble. And what I learned from him eventually led to cleaning house and firing entire crews from other jobs because the company had become a traveling crime wave, moving from job site to job site. He came to me crying one day because they needed a truck driver on another site, and I was told to send him. He knew he would relapse because the entire crew were all tweakers. I didn't mention this was a family business and I was family. What a nightmare. I hope Steve is doing okay, wherever he is. So glad to be out of that mess. Family can be tough sometimes. He got incredibly drunk at a Halloween party and left with his best friend, who was also intoxicated, in their '93 Mustang. This was in the early 2000s. They veered off the highway into a ravine at a high speed and hit a rock outcropping. The best friend wasn't wearing a seatbelt. The popular guy was. The airbags did not deploy. The best friend was ejected through the steering wheel and out the window into the rocks. The popular guy smashed his face into the dashboard, breaking nearly every bone in it and causing severe facial injuries. What made it even worse was that the best friend didn't die on impact. The force of the ejection drove his head through one of the steering wheel's grippy holes, resulting in catastrophic injuries. He shattered nearly every bone and most internal organs. The popular guy, despite his severe injuries, witnessed his friend choking to death slowly on the steering wheel while calling out for his parents. He managed to drag himself out of the car, climb up the ravine to the highway, and wave at passing cars until someone stopped and called the police. The person who stopped and the police were all wearing realistic Halloween masks. but it turned out the masks were not masks. The best friend died sometime after the accident. His funeral was closed casket. The popular guy underwent extensive reconstructive surgery and spent the next 12 years in therapy. He didn't finish high school, struggled with addiction, turned to religion, and eventually went off the grid. I ran into him during COVID. Despite his mask, I recognized his eyes at a store. We caught up over lunch a week later. He's been sober for 4 years, moved away from religion after breakthrough therapy, and earned his high school diploma and an associate's degree in business from a community college. He started a web design and consulting business from home with contracts through his dad's connections. He bought a house and moved out. He cannot drive or even sit in the front passenger seat of a vehicle. He gets anxious just being in a car. He rides a bike as much as possible or has his girlfriend drive while he sits in the back. His voice sounds haunted, as though the traumatic memory is constantly with him. Despite the physical rebuilding, his face looks surprisingly good. He's not the stereotypical popular guy anymore, but rather a testament to how a single moment can drastically alter one's life trajectory.
Thanks for watching. Please don't forget to like and subscribe to see more.